This morning, I want to talk about financing. While I got Brandon here, because he will not be around after today, he's got to go to Mark Victor Hansen's dealie on books. By the way, how many of you have got this idea that you want to write a book in you? All of you should have your hands up. All of you should write a book. I don't care if you ever publish it. I don't care if anybody ever reads it, but you should write a book. You'll be surprised what you'll learn about yourself when you're writing a book. Number one, it's not near as hard as it seems. The hardest part about writing a book is getting started. Once you get started, you mark my words, the book will flow. And you don't have to write a book about real estate. Just write a book. Write a book about your own experiences. I don't care if you have your local printer print it and print 2 copies of it and put it on your coffee table at home. At least you got a book with your name on it. You should write a book. If you just write, so I'll tell you what you do. You write an article for the Financial Freedom newsletter or for your local real estate association, and you write about 12 of them, put them together, you got a book. You got a book. So if you're going to write 12 articles over a period of time, go ahead and write out the table of contents first, so you'll know what in order to write the articles in, and put them together, and you got a book. You'd be so proud of yourself. You won't make any money at it, but you'd be so proud of yourself. And if you guys ever get a chance to, and you will get a chance to go to Mark Victor Hansen's, but what does he actually call this thing, Brandon?
The Mega Book event.
The Mega Book event. Describe this thing that's going on while you're sitting here. So
yeah, actually, it started today, and then it'll go tomorrow and Sunday down in L.A., and he brings in some of the top and best-selling authors on the planet. Of course, Robert G. Allen, as you would imagine, will be there, as well as Jack Canfield. He's got a number of different authors, and I can't remember who else is on the...
He's got Harvey McKay there, isn't he, this time? Or was it... Who was it?
I don't know that... I know Ken Blanchard will be there.
Ken Blanchard.
Right, that's right. And then there's another... an author who wrote a book about getting rich late in life, so that may apply to some of you. But really, it's a great educational...
What are you trying to say?
I've talked to some people that said they were late bloomers and excited to be in the game, and I was mentioning that the great thing about life is it's never too late to bloom.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, some of the people in here are excited to be alive, Brendan.
Count me in that category.
All right, I saved you on that one. Well, what do we do during this event?
What he does is really takes you through the process. He has a number of different experts in book marketing. It's really not as much about writing a book as the business of selling books. For those of you who don't know, Mark has sold over 100 million books. He claims he is the best-selling non-fiction author on the planet. I haven't checked that stat, but I have no reason to doubt him. And what he does is he brings in people that can help you package your book, market your book, do the press tour so that you can get the word out about your book, and really follow in his footsteps to become a best-selling author. And what's so important to me, and the reason that I'm going, is so many of you have great stories to tell. I heard so many yesterday afternoon about people that are doing great work and have great stuff inside of you. If you never let it out and never let the world know about it, then you're not living up to your full potential. So get that out there. Let people know what you're passionate about, because I believe there's a reason you're passionate about that. I believe you need to share that. You need to pass it on and pay it forward.
And they also help you figure out how to pull that out of you, how to express that, and how to turn that into words that most people just sit internally containing for their life because they don't consider themselves writers. I'll tell you something. If you think you got to be a writer, go to read some of these books. You don't have to be a writer. You just got to write it down. You got to write it down. And some of the best sellers are some of the worst English teachers have a cow over something, And when I write, obviously my grammar is not the best, and it's not an accident, and I would never, ever want to clean it up. Ever. Because I'm me writing. I'm not writing to satisfy an English teacher. Now, I'll tell you the new book that I got out, How to Be a Quick Turn Real Estate Millionaire, which I don't think we have any here, do we, guys? It's in the bookstores. And it's on Amazon and all the others. You should have seen the way Dearborn cleaned that up. See, I write it, then they clean it up. So that they published it. Dearborn Press published that thing. But they still didn't take out all of my lousy grammar. They just cleaned it up so they could stomach it, you know. And you should have seen some of the stuff they pulled out of it. And but they published it, and it's doing well. It's not a million seller. If you want to learn how to get a book on the top seller list, Mark will sure teach you that too, because I don't know anybody better at that than him. And he's a great guy. Great guy. You guys owe it to yourself to get to this thing when you get a chance. In fact, do you know when the next one is?
I don't. He does 3 megas a year right now. He does one on mega book publishing, he does one on mega marketing, and he does another on mega public speaking. He called me last week, and he's planning to add another, mega philanthropy. So that's going to be a fun conference to put together and be a part of. But really, what I would invite you, if you're not in Mark's sphere of influence yet, if he hasn't touched your life, you need to be touched. He's an incredible guy. He has an amazing, enlightened perspective on what's really important in the world, and he has some great mentoring and coaching that he can offer. He has different groups, different levels of participation. His inner circle group is amazing. They travel all over the world and meet with the most amazing business owners and teachers on the planet. In fact, next month he's flying me up to Banff to meet with their group, and they have about 140 people that pay $25,000 a year to be part of this inner circle. But what happens is they open up doors that you could never get into on your own.
Got to deliver them.
Worth every penny.
Okay, thank you. All right, this morning we're going to skip a little, and we're going to go directly to financing, which is on page 81, and try to explore how we get projects financed, getting in, getting out, and the do's and the don'ts, and the reasons why things are the way they are, and what it takes to get a project financed. And I mean, what is financeable and what isn't financeable, because if you get into a project and you're not clear on how you're going to get out of it, you know by now you should always know the exit strategy before you go in the entrance, if you've been trained by me. You don't just go buy a property, then try to figure out what you're going to do with it. Now, in the case of commercials, sometimes you buy a property and you're continually looking for the best, highest and best use, but you at least have ideas what you're going to do with this property before you go buying a property. And I'll tell you, that's not always the case. I see people buying properties and then start looking for what they're going to do. What did I buy this for? No, that's a giant trap. If you buy a property and you're in an illusional world on how to get it financed, then you're in for a seminar that could be very expensive for you. Or if you put a property under contract and you are in an illusional world on what is real and what isn't, all you're going to do is lose the deal, lose face, kill relationships, and make people mad at you and make it hard to deal with them ever again. And believe me, the word gets around very quickly when you're a time waster. So we're going to discuss 3 different types of financing. We're going to probably spend most of the time on the permanent financing that all projects will require if they are to be kept by you, or the same financing that will be required if you decide not to keep them, somebody else wants them. And what's real, what isn't. Now, Brandon deals largely in that world. I asked him to come here for that and other reasons. And he also deals in private money as well. He's mostly in the permanent financing. So, and I want you to meet Sam Kamak too when we get a chance. And Sam is also in the world of financing, but different types of financing. And some, of course, there's bleed over in all of it. Brandon's job, I would say Brandon's staff's job, day in and day. He's getting this, the less I do, the more I make stuff. I'm the front man. So if you ask me some of the technical details, I may not know the answers, but I've got people that do. I'm proud of you for not knowing the answers. And by the way, he just showed me a couple more contracts he's got on this energy stuff he's selling to China. Yeah.
I got back to the hotel room. My partner called me. We got another 1 million ton contract, so another 78 million. Well, I was here with you guys. How fun is that?
Personally, I think he's making it all up anyway.
Well, I don't write Chinese, so I suppose I could make that up.
How do you know what it says then?
I don't, but I have a partner who's Chinese, so he wrote it.
All right. Sherman Ragland brought me these books before we get started, but you might want to take down these web addresses. This is called the Mid-Atlantic Business and Opportunities Commercial Real Estate Guide. And I wouldn't be surprised that there are others around the country in other areas on the same website. Is there, Sherman?
They're mainly D.C., Virginia, Maryland.
They're mainly D.C., Virginia, Maryland, and so forth. But I'll bet you they can lead you to similar publications. Anyway, it's called Business Opportunities and Commercial Real Estate Guide. Certainly worth checking out. And their website is at BizGuide, BIZGUIDE.com or www.com-re.com. Commercial, com-re.com. Businesses, development land, franchises, investment real estate, and so forth. I'll put these up here for you to look at. Now, who has got the book that Dale Kilgus created that I had up here yesterday that he submitted deals to me in? Really, all it is the same property information sheets that you have in your little folder with your 4 CDs, and then a page or two on each project that he added in here, and then he just put a divider in between each one of them is all he did. He did a nice job. Well, to tell you the truth, I got this long after we were already working with Dale, but it would have got my attention. It would have got my attention a whole lot faster than something like this that I actually did read last night. This is all about the city of Ardmore, Oklahoma. My God, can you imagine me reading this? Huh? Well, I did last night, actually, because I just happened to have a time when I had a little else to do, and I'm going to talk about these this morning, but don't send me something like this. You send me something like this. And that's the reason to put it on the bottom of the pile, because it looks like it's going to take way too much time for me to look at it. I can tell you that. You start by sending me this, just one page, 1 or 2 or 3 pages. Then we worry about stuff like this, if it's a go. 3 types of financing. And you're going to use all 3 of them all the time. The first one is hard money loans. And just for the record, just in case you don't already know this, if you don't find sources of hard money loans, you're not going to be buying real estate without your money. The hard money is what allows you to buy property without your money. And you will not use banks to buy property without money. Banks will not loan you all the capital you need to buy a property. They will always loan you. I don't care if you go buy a property at 30% of its value, they'll loan you 75% of that 30%. Which means you still got to come out of pocket with money, or get the seller to hold a second, or get partners to put up money, or whatever, but you're not going to do it without somebody's money in the deal. By using hard money and structuring it correctly, you can literally create deals that don't require your money at all. Hard money lenders, I should say some hard money lenders, not all of them, even so-called hard money lenders, sometimes want you to have skin in the game. And I want to tell you right now, don't assume, now one of those Perenity guys, make sure, don't assume, because all we got is 200 of them, don't assume that because a hard money lender wants you to have skin in the game, that is the only game. The battle that I've been fighting for the last 6 weeks since I've been on the case of raising capital, which is all the time that I've had on it, actually 5 weeks, is to find people who want to fund properties without me having to write a check to buy them. Yes, I can understand where they're coming from. I mean, if you're loaning hard money, wouldn't you feel more warm and fuzzy if somebody had money on the table as well? Yeah. All right, but here's my philosophy. And frankly, I'm only going to deal with people who share this philosophy. And what am I going to do with the rest of them? Whack them. Let me ask you something. Why would I go put up 25% down payment and borrow money at a high rate and pay high points when I can get that same money from the bank at a low rate and pay little points? Right. I mean, what are they missing here? Why do I need them? Because if you know, in other words, if a hard money lender is going to live by the same rules as a lending institution, I'll go where the cheap money is. All day, every day. They just don't get it. And I'll tell you one thing. I'm going to get to the point to where I'm going to put together the funds to become that hard money lender. I get it. And I get it very clearly. If you have the ability to go out and steal a deal, I mean, that is the reward the reward you should get for stealing the deal is you don't have to put your money in. You buy a property at 30% of the value. A hard money lender ought to feel comfortable with the value being there. You know, of course they need to trust whoever they're lending the money to. They're not in the property business. Some of you think that lenders are in the property business. That's the last thing they want. They just want to put the money out and get the money back. I can understand that. But it ain't like they got to lay awake at night wondering whether they're going to get the money back. What's the worst can happen? They put the money out, the borrower don't pay. Okay, well then hire a realtor to sell the property at 50 cents on the dollar if it's a good enough loan-to-value ratio. Now, of course, everybody, all the lenders certainly don't share that philosophy. And it's their right, you know. Ye who has gold make rules. You want to weigh in on this so I can get off my...
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say...
you want the other side of this? You want the...
No, that's fine. I mean, you need to think about things from their perspective. You know, when you're dealing with financing, you've got to put yourself in their shoes and understand what they're looking for. Now, Ron's absolutely right. What do banks want? Banks want loans that are absolutely safe. Now, there's no absolutes, but they're going to be as safe and conservative as possible. Hard money lenders have a different mindset, and there is a spectrum of hard money lenders. There are hard money lenders that underwrite similar to banks. Then there are hard money lenders who are much more accommodating and really only care about the property. Ron is absolutely correct that they don't want to take the property back. However, they want to know that if they have to take the property back, they're going to make money. We have a client right now, we did a hard money loan in Las Vegas. On a $1 million home, the lender did $700,000 loan, but because he wanted to keep it at 60% LTV, they cross-collateralized with another piece, a $440,000 house that was owned free and clear. So he just had to take it back, but now he's picking up $700,000 in equity. Now, you know, if I was wearing the shoes of the real estate investor, I'd be doing something to pull some equity out of that other
You'd
house
think, wouldn't you?
So that I could make the payments.
You'd think. Yeah.
This woman's not doing that, so this guy's going to walk with $700,000. He's going to double his money. Not to mention the points that he charged up front and the interest. Actually, he never collected interest because the woman never made a single payment. So she just evidently wanted to cash out, take as much cash as she could.
Yeah,
and
you know
walk.
what? There's a point right there. If I'm a hard money lender, I'm not going to make a loan at any loan-to-value ratio to somebody who has no income and has no clue on how to get this money paid back. I mean, we can certainly understand that, can't we? If you're in the loan business and you don't want to be in the real estate business, you don't make loans on properties you know you're going to get back. No problem there. No problem there. So even though we're talking about hard money, that doesn't mean that everybody's going to get it if they have no physical means of support and they're on food stamps. I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. But let's clarify here why we need hard money. Again, I want you to clearly understand this because some of you are a little cloudy on this. Assuming somebody in your partnership or your entity or whatever has got a reasonably decent financial statement on the smaller stuff, on the larger stuff you'll soon discover that the property is the financial statement. The property will support the loan. As long as somebody's got something to work with there, the permanent loan on the back end is something that takes place only after you acquire the property. Here's the problem with getting permanent financing. First problem is you got to come up with a down payment. But frankly, that's not even the biggest problem. The biggest problem with permanent financing is that it takes much longer to get done and it requires a lot more crap than most hard money loans, and usually you run out of time in order to accommodate the seller's needs. If you're going to go out and you're going to steal properties, you're going to have a very difficult time stealing them and getting 180 days to close. There's a trade-off here, you know. You're going to get a reasonable due diligence. Usually the average time to close on a commercial property is 90 days, give or take. 60. We always shoot for 60 days due diligence and at least 30 days to close thereafter. And we try to get more if we can. But try getting a bank to work with you. And remember, it ain't like you get to apply for the loan day one. There's quite a bit of work you have to do before the bank even wants to look at the loan package. or before any lender wants to look at it. You got to have some stuff, and there's more work you got to do before they'll close the loan. And I'm going to tell you, the way banks operate at their own pace, with very little sense of urgency most of the time, I just find it easier. I'd much rather get a hard money loan, even if I had the money to put up the down payment. I'd rather close it, get the pressure off, and now take my time, get the loan done, get a good loan, get the best loan, get the pieces in place, and not be under any pressure to close the permanent loan on the back end. Many times when you buy a property, you won't get a permanent loan because the property's not ready to fund the permanent loan yet. You buy an apartment complex that's vacant, you're going to have a miserable time getting a permanent loan from a bank on an empty building. If you buy a piece of land and you want to get a development loan, you got to get a lot of stuff in a package before the lender is going to do the development loan. And this stuff takes time, especially with land. You could be months getting a piece of land from the time you're ready to go get a development loan, because you got municipalities to deal with. So let's cover hard money first. And the advantages are very simple. Without it, you're going to find it difficult to operate. Now, do normal developers and commercial property gurus, bigwigs, understand hard money? In fact, how would most of them feel about hard money?
They would know.
Well, they don't even know what that is. I'm telling you, Donald Trump wouldn't know what hard money is. In fact, Donald Trump didn't even know there was an industry out there that bought foreclosures. He didn't. He didn't. He was in the back of the car with Greg Morris, Jeff Coller's guy, and Greg started talking about foreclosures. You say, you mean you guys, there's people who teach this stuff? And, he didn't know. He don't get that. That's not the world he lives in. Donald Trump, I bet he doesn't even know what subordination means. Maybe he don't need to know.
I bet he knows what cross-collateralization is.
Oh, that I know he knows. Certainly knows that one, sure. Anyway, I don't know what he knows. I'm just
Ron, do you want to talk about the cost of money? Because I think it's important in the conversation about hard money versus permanent financing, that you've got to know you're going to pay more for hard money. I mean, typically you're looking 8 to 10 points, 12 to 14. I've even seen on some of these international deals 18% interest rates. So at face value, that money looks a lot more expensive and absolutely is more expensive. However, if it gets you into a property, you've got to evaluate your profit potential versus the cost of that money, because obviously if you can't get in the deal, there's no profit. Okay? And Ron's absolutely right. What most investors that operate like you guys do will do is they'll pick up a property with hard money because it's not financeable. If you're going to steal a property, it's going to be a property that has high vacancies, maybe some
a problem.
Deferred maintenance. It's a problem property.
Yeah.
So you've got to fix that problem. And a bank's not going to do that for you. I mean, unless you're somebody like Donald Trump, they might help him out a little bit. But typically, you're going to need to take a hard money solution to grab that property, fix it up, and improve it to the point where you can fix the problem and then go for permanent financing. So you've got to look at the cost of money as a whole and understand that this is typically a short-term solution. Most hard money loans are 1 to 2 years. We deal with a few private investors that will go 3 to 5. But normally this is a 12 to 24-month solution. And while the cost seems high, again, if they'll lend you $500,000, where a bank would only lend you $300,000, the benefit for that additional $200,000 that gets you in the deal is well worth the additional cost of capital.
And you guys got to get over this cost of this capital. You should just look at it as another expense. Look at it as the cost of rehab, so it don't hurt so bad. Because it's not the cost that's important, it's the availability of that capital. Just take my little project on Boardman Crossing. Remember that 283-acre development in Michigan that we're doing, that we're paying $2 million for? With at least a $20 million exit on it? And remember, that $20 million is just for the land. That don't count me building anything on it. Everybody understand that? Okay, because who knows what that's going to be. How much could I pay for that $2 million before that deal wouldn't make any sense? I don't know. but it's a whole lot more than anybody's going to charge me. But I got to borrow the $2 million, and then I got to borrow the money to get at least part of the development going. In fact, what would my strategy be on that project? Would I borrow enough hard money to develop the whole property?
No.
Why not?
You could do it in pieces.
Well,
And sell the
you're right.
pieces, pay back the note.
What I'll borrow is enough money to buy it, which is the big hurdle, isn't it?
Yep.
After that, it gets easy, as long as we make payments, of course. So I'll borrow enough money to buy it and make the payments. And then I'll borrow enough to do phase one. Once I get phase one going and get some lots sold, will it be relatively easy to get now a nice low-interest development loan to cover the entire cost of the rest of the project? Yeah. And in fact, I won't even borrow that at one time. I'll borrow that, pay off the hard money, and use the money as we do the phases, so I not even pay an interest on it. In other words, it's a line of credit, or it's a construction loan. Plan A, acquire property. Because if we don't get Plan A done, the rest of them don't matter. And yeah, I'm going to warn you. I'm going to tell you again. You're going to get out here in the world of money, and you're going to get all kinds of people with availability of capital with all kinds of different rules. They're not really that vast and varied. But if you let the first two people you talk to about getting money convince you that the kind of money you're looking for is not available, then you're not strong enough to persist and succeed in this business. You cannot let the morons jerk your chain till you're out of business. You got to understand, right now in our society, in this country, we have more capital available for investment than in the history of the United States of America. We are the richest now we have ever been since we were born. There's capital out there chasing deals. The people with the capital and in control of the capital need the deals a lot more than we need their capital. We can go someplace else to get the capital. Deals are far and few in between compared to the supply of capital. And people that control capital cannot survive. They cannot. Their product is money. If they can't rent the money, they have no income. They're out of business. All deals have somebody that will fund them. But you got to persist to get to the people who really speak your language and get it. In fact, Sam Kamak and I here. Where you at, Sam? You back there? Stand up for a minute. You'll meet Sam later. The line of credit that I'm closing next week is because this guy persisted and cut through the crap. You wouldn't believe the crap we put up with all these morons out here trying to suck front-end fees out of us, making us all these big promises and not delivering squat. I didn't have Brandon on the case then. I'll thank you, Sam. I'll get Sam up here later. By the way, we just handed out one of these. Brandon don't want you to see this.
Oh, I don't mind.
You don't care. You know, it ain't like he needs the money or anything.
I'd actually prefer that you take a look at that because that'll save me a lot of time.
Yeah. All right, this is the Scotsman's Guide. Have you gotten these yet?
Yes.
You can't. Well, we had 200 of them. If you're a couple and you got two, please give up one of them. I had Scotsman's Guide send them here for you. You got to subscribe to this, and it's scotsmansguide.com. SCOTS, mansguide.com. Look, if you need money for commercial property and you can't find it in here, don't give up your day job. Every kind of money you want, permanent, hard money. Now, Brandon's going to take care of you over here. Between Brandon and Sam and with people in this room, we've got you covered. But look, there ain't a need for a loan that ain't covered in this book. There's the lenders. It tells what they do. It tells where they're at. It tells what they want to loan on. It tells us what they do, what they don't want to do. So please, I don't want to hear it. There's the money. I mean, when I get to it, I'm going to tell you one company you absolutely do not want to go to. Yeah, Brandon and I are very, very close to that deal. Page 49. Are they in here? 49. There's a company called Kennedy Funding. You put a big X over Kennedy Funding. In fact, you mark through them, wherever they're at. Do not ever call Kennedy Funding for a loan.
Hey, I've been in their offices. They have some really nice offices.
I don't doubt it. They built them on fees they suck out of borrowers they lied to.
You know, that's the only lending office I've ever been to where they have security that you can't get past without the woman letting you in.
Really?
That should tell you something.
They want to make sure you're not one of their disgruntled.
Yes.
Just so you know, I am suing them, have sued them. They got $120,000 of my money because they made me a commitment. And this is a very big trick, which I already got covered in here, so I'm on it now. I'll just go ahead and finish it. They made me a commitment for a loan through Brandon. Brandon found them. Brandon did this to me.
And this tells you what a great guy Ron is. Because he's still not only talking to me, he's still invited me here. So
Anyway, I got this commitment for projects. In fact, this was the first commitment I got on both Forney and Frisco, and the idea was to close them simultaneously with a purchase, which we could easily done if I'd have got the right lenders. And so they made me this commitment. Then they send this guy out here, and they send me the property, and he comes back with these values that are so low that an idiot could see they were ridiculous. What they did was intentionally take my $120,000 commitment fee, come downplay the value so they wouldn't have to make the loan and keep the fee. You see, their agreement says that if the property doesn't appraise out, they've earned their fee. As long as they're willing to make a loan at 60% of the value that they determined was real. It's an absolute scam. It's a scam. And by the way, we're going after them. I'm going after them for, a friend of mine told me to go after them for fraud, even though my attorney can't see how. We're going to find a way. We're going to get them for fraud. We're already suing them. Shoot, they got over 100 lawsuits against them. I'm just one of many. But, man, they pissed off the wrong guy, I'm telling you. And it's a man thing. I'm getting my $120,000 back one way or another, as long as Kennedy Funding is around. So stay away from them. And, in fact, I'll tell you what, I'm going to table that till we get to it. But there's do's and don'ts with all these types of lenders, and I certainly want Brandon in on that one. But the big lesson here is, anytime somebody wants you to send them a great big fee, buyer beware. Buyer beware. They're in the front-end fee business. Now, there's nothing wrong with small fees. There is due diligence cost to any commercial loan, and you will be paying some front-end cost on most of the loans. But reasonable cost. I should have known. $120,000 commitment fee for two $4 million loans. Something was wrong. But hey, the guy talked a good line, didn't he? Brandon went over to see him to check him out. Talked a good line to Brandon.
couple times.
And now, of course, after this fiasco is over, everybody I talk to say, "Oh, you dealt with Kennedy? Oh, congratulations."
They say that to you too, huh?
Yeah. Okay, I have now been christened. Yeah, now I'm a player, all right. Dummy. So you see, even gurus get their butt kicked. You know why they got me? Because they had me in this squeeze with a short period of time between the time I had to close and the time I had to raise the money. And I was working real hard not to write a check to go ahead and close. That's why they got me. But it won't happen again. I learned a valuable lesson there. Look down to page 80, at the bottom of page 83. There's some advantages and disadvantages. As long as you clearly understand, you're going to pay more for hard money. Now, hard money, there are definitely going to be points. And in a minute, you're going to learn the best way to get hard money is go to the brokers who deal with the hard money. You're definitely going to pay points. You're going to pay points to the lender. You're going to pay points to the broker. Fortunately, most of that comes out of the loan, so it's not like it's an out-of-pocket expense to any great degree.
When you borrow hard money,
Yeah.
do you borrow enough for the interest for 6 months, 12 months on these development deals? Because
Actually, I'm going to get to that. First, I want to go through the three, then we're going to come back and dissect them a little bit more. But the answer is absolutely. You always borrow more than you need the day you need it.
okay,
Always.
and then you try to gauge how long you think it'll take to get that permanent financing at a lower rate.
Or just borrow all you can borrow
Okay.
so that you're safe. Will you pay interest on money you're not actually using? Yes. Is that better than needing money that you don't actually have?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I always try to borrow more than I need. I told you about the project in Florida. $3 million to buy it. I'm borrowing $4 million. And frankly, lender don't want to loan me at least $4 million next. I mean, I'm going to borrow $4 million or I'm going to change lenders. And could I borrow more? We got $11 million appraisal as is. And maybe I will borrow more. I don't know. But if I do, it'll be on a line of credit type thing, so that I don't have to pay interest on it when I'm not using it. I got buildings sitting here, and they need some maintenance. But I mean, it ain't like they need to renovate it or anything. They're just great big holes and big buildings anyway. Well, who knows what expenses I'm going to come up with on that property? And I'd rather have money in the till that I don't have allocated than have to write a check out of my pocket. And you know, for me, that's not as big a deal as it is for some of you. You get yourself into these projects by yourselves without a partner, and you can't write a check out of your pocket. And guess where you're at? In deep caca. Now you got bills you can't pay, and you got lenders that are mad at you, and you got your head stuck in the sand, and you're running and hiding, and you're like that lady he was describing. And pretty soon you're going to hate this thing called real estate. The problem wasn't real estate; it's a problem of mismanagement, which is a good thing for the properties we're buying, because most of the properties you buy are mismanaged.
Well, and if I can add something, you know, this game is Monopoly. We're playing Monopoly here,
Yeah.
guys. I play Monopoly like 3 times a week with my 12-year-old son. He loves it, and it allows me to teach him lessons about finance, about real estate, and about life. And what is it about Monopoly? When you're playing, how do you win in Monopoly? You know, what I do is I'll pick up properties, and then as soon as the other guy's got them, I'll mortgage them, because that $10 I'm going to collect in rent, I'd rather have the $100 in cash to buy more property. It sort of applies here. You know, if you can borrow all that you can or more than you need on a specific project, and you've got money sitting there, now you've got cash that you can go play on other properties with.
At the very least, take care of this property. But there's a big warning. You know, obviously, there's a big warning with this. What is the warning that I think that I have to give you about borrowing more than you need? Huh? Yeah, this ain't your money. This ain't doodad money. This ain't boat money. This ain't airplane money. This is money you better keep your mitts off of till you get this thing fixed and replace it with different money. It's not your money. Guys, listen closely. You do not live on borrowed money. If you do, you're waiting to fall. You're building your empire on a house of cards. You have to make a profit somewhere along the line. And some people mistake the cash in the bank for their money. It's not your money. You borrowed that money. And until you can safely say that it is your money, you better be very careful on what you spend it on. A certain recipe for disaster, a certain recipe for bankruptcy is robbing Peter to pay Paul, and borrowing money to pay to survive on. I borrow money. I want to make sure that money's spent on that property. I want to take a trip to Hawaii. I need to go make some money. And it's an easy trap to fall into. Somebody in a previous seminar says, when you rob Peter to pay Paul, pretty soon you have sore Peter. I'm not sure what that means, but I just thought I'd... Mark,
Can I use that? I've never heard that before.
Yeah, tell Mark that. He'll get that, yeah. Did you have another question in the
Just
back?
to follow up, when you close on a hard money loan, do you have to, if you...
Oh, geez, that was
If you're
on tape.
closing on $5 million, do you have to take all that out at one time, or can you set up development?
No, that's the beauty
like
of it. My deal is a line of credit.
Line of credit.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to take part of it out to pay off the first,
Minimize
pay
your-
off the seller, pay the closing cost, but I take the rest out as I need it. That's the best kind of loan you can get. But remember now, on that loan, I already own the property. That bank would absolutely have not given me that money if I were purchasing it simultaneously. Why? Because they're giving me more than I'm putting out. Banks just don't do that when you're purchasing. By the way, do you play cash flow with your kids?
No.
Get Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow
I've
game.
heard of that.
You will like it much better than Monopoly. How many of you play cash flow with your kids? The rest of you get cash flow and play it with your kids and your spouse.
My kids can.
Don't play the kids version. Get them the adult version. They can play the adult version. In fact, I was playing with my daughter Vicky the other day, and she beat me.
Yeah.
We both got out of the rat race, and she was lucky enough to land on her dream. Big deal. She just got lucky. For 4 days. I need better cash flow. She put a big sign on the front door of the building. I beat Dad at cash flow. I want a rematch. Go ahead.
When using hard money with residential, a lot of times they'll let you go like 6 months without making payments and just give the whole lump sum back. Is that at all common in commercial, where you don't have to make monthly payments on but because you may have a shorter term project, you may return all the interest with the principal.
You can find a number of different solutions. One is where you defer for 6 months or even a year before making any payments. Another is where they'll deduct that up front. So they'll take a 1 year.
That's common, actually.
Payment reserve is real common. So if your payments are $1,000 a month, they're going to take out $12,000 out of the proceeds.
And if you let them do that, which is okay, just make sure you get the rest back if you pay back the loan early.
Sure.
You better watch the language in that verbiage. Well, actually, them taking the money out now is as good as letting them accrue interest. It's just safer for them, So I don't really have any problem with that.
I've never had a client have a problem with it because, honestly, it gives them a little bit of peace of mind. Because boy, I've got a year to get this thing turned around and replaced.
Yeah, and the answer to your question is it's all negotiable.
All negotiable.
Of course, the one who's writing the check gets the final say, but it's all negotiable. In fact, I think my credit line is quarterly payments of interest only, as I recall. And I don't really care. I'd rather not make monthly payments. And frankly, when I'm the lender, and sometimes I'm a lender, I'd really rather not receive monthly payments. But not everybody's like that. Because it's obvious that the bill keeps getting bigger and bigger if you're not receiving monthly payments. And even if you do that for your own benefit, you ought to put a cap on how many months goes by before you catch up this interest, unless you just got so much equity that it just doesn't matter. I mean, you're borrowing money at 40% LTV. You could let it accrue interest for a year, and it wouldn't even make a dent in the big picture. If the lender agrees with that, that is obviously the best way for you to borrow money. And you all should try to negotiate that. When you borrow the hard money, say, listen, I'd rather have it accrue interest. And if they don't mind, and if they get it, they may not mind. Sometimes, though, they have rules within their system that will prohibit them from doing that. And I can give you an example. People who put together funds of money, which is a security, have a private placement document, like the one I'm going to give some of you here tomorrow. And in that document, it spells out how that money's to be used and how it's to be distributed. And so they just can't be making willy-nilly rules as they go along. And the purpose of the reason anybody puts together a fund is to get a high rate of return for those investors. And you don't have to be too bright to know that if the money's coming in that you can put back out, you should be able to get a higher rate of return on it than if the money's just sitting out there accruing interest. In other words, if they're getting the payments back, now they can make interest on that interest. If this makes any sense. But it might, in other words, it might be a higher rate of return if they're churning the payments, especially if it's a big fund. You got $1 billion in a fund, collecting monthly payments is a lot of money, If you got $1 million fund, it's probably not even big enough to matter. Anyway, they have their own rules, so they have to live by those. You've got a smile on your face. Looks
Well,
like
I just wanted to mention that I've got a funder flying in today that we'll meet with here for lunch and then go see Forney and Frisco. And this guy's got $315 million in a fund. That fund specifically is for hospitality, for hotels and restaurants and hospitality projects. You're absolutely right. I mean, I agree with everything that Ron just said. These guys have money. They want to get it out there on the streets. They want to churn it. And you've got part of your objective is to make them feel as comfortable as possible. Obviously, low loan to values is the number one thing that makes them feel comfortable. Another thing that is helpful is if you don't have a lot of financial depth, find a friend or a family member who does. Because even if they don't give up any equity, if they simply are added on to the loan package to make it fuller, then a lot of times we can get deals done at lower interest rates because the overall package is much more attractive.
I'd be very cautious about bringing on a financial stable partner like that and just willy-nilly giving away 50% of the profits just so they can get in the deal and use their financial statement. Just make a note. You don't have to give away 50% to get the job done.
Well, and the objective, of course,
all negotiable.
And the objective, of course, is to use that person for the first deal or two.
Yeah.
You want to outgrow them very, very quickly because you don't want to be sharing the equity. But the first time you get in the game, you may need somebody like that, and the objective is to get rid of them as quick as you can.
All right, let's move into seller financing. Yeah, your objective is to whack me as soon as possible. Yeah, that was good advice. That
Was I
sure
pointing to you?
Yes, you were. Yeah, right at me. Yeah.
Now I see why you're taking offense.
That's okay. I don't care. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to ask for our benefit. Could you recommend some trustworthy and reliable private lenders, maybe from the guide, other than Brandon, of course?
All right, first of all, as you'll see here in a few minutes, the last thing a mortgage broker is ever going to recommend to you is a lender, unless you're going through them and have an agreement with them. Mm-hmm. To ask someone else to give up one of their lenders is like asking for a date with their wife. In fact, they'd rather give you the wife. So that's not a question you ever want to ask a mortgage broker. You know, give me the name of your lender so I can call them.
What should I ask to get a tip?
No. If you want, well, I'll tell you what, let's get to that. Let's get to that. Now, look, you're free to call anybody in here you want and develop these relationships, and you probably should. In fact, should you ever pin all of your hopes on one broker or one lender? No, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get disappointed if you do. God, if there's any lesson I've ever learned, it's that one. So I want you to expand your horizons. Because Brandon can't supply all your needs. Sam's not going to supply you. Nobody's going to supply all your needs. Unless your needs are very small. Besides, isn't it true that sometimes if you're dealing with one lender or one broker, you're going to have needs that go outside of their spectrum, special needs perhaps. And I've talked to some of you, and some of you definitely have special needs. So, yeah, I feel just abnormally brutal today.
You are talking financially, right?
I think it was him that triggered it. I'm not sure.
Well, I want to clarify. I'm glad that you pointed that out so that I know where you're coming from. When I was talking about investors, I think there's a point of clarification. I wasn't talking about Ron specifically, even though I'm pointing over at him, because Ron is not just an investor. Ron is a mentor and a partner. So when you're looking at doing a deal with Ron, that's different than having a parent or a friend of the family add some financial weight to your package. I mean,
Well, you crawled out of that one nicely.
Well, no, I mean... listen, I'm in the business. I brought a deal to Ron. I brought a deal to him soon after I met him. Unfortunately, it didn't get accepted because we were looking at a lot of cash on that one. But, it was out of my area of expertise because my business is money. And what I saw he bringing him best use, how to analyze that project and figure out how to make the most money out of it.
Yeah,
I'd gladly give up an equity share for that.
That is what, when I started this partnership thing, that's exactly what I intended to do. I made up my mind, I'm going to do these deals, but I'm not going to put money in them, and I'm not going to go get the loans. That ain't what I'm supposed to be doing. Geez, that didn't last long. But I still do that. Just so you'll know. It's a 50-50 partnership if you can do the business, and I don't have to be the one to sign on a note or to write a check. And I'm happy to do that to this day. But frankly, I find very few people who qualify as a 50% partner because they all need either money or me to get the money, or they are not capable of doing the work. But that's okay. How are you ever going to get to that point? How do you get to be good at anything? First you be bad at it, and soon you get good at it.
There are no failures, only lessons.
You're watching too much Oprah. All right.
Guilty.
I think you read that in Mark's book there somewhere, didn't you?
Probably.
Okay. Let's turn to page
Millionaire Aha number 12 or something.
Let's turn to page 84. Get on seller financing. Again, I'm going to tell you something. You're not going to be in the commercial world long. In fact, before I ever even think about paying all cash for a property, we see what we can do to get seller financing first. That's always the first line of defense. I don't need long-term seller financing. How come I don't need long-term seller financing? If you think about this, if I get long-term seller financing, isn't it true that usually the old traditional thing is to just put up a down payment and get the seller to finance the balance over a period of years? Well, what's the problem with that plan? Putting up the down payment part. Yeah. So if I need that permanent financing over a period of years, that means I intend to keep that financing on the property. That means I can't get my down payment back. I don't like that plan. Folks, we are not going to bury money in real estate for very long. We're not. We're just not. I'm adamantly opposed to burying money in real estate. And, sometime I get a chance, I'll show you how much that costs you. We can get all the real estate we want, residential and commercial, without burying our money in it. It's okay to write a check as long as you get that check back quickly with a bigger check. And I live by those rules. And I'm not writing a check to buy a property and have that check buried in that property for a period of time. Not even more than a few months max, and definitely not years. In fact, I'll just touch on that right now. If you write a check for $100,000 to buy a piece of property for a down payment, and you leave it buried in the property, first of all, isn't it true that that property is going to grow or develop at the same pace with or without your $100,000 in it? Is that true? Okay, so your $100,000 investment had nothing to do with the growth rate of that property. Whether you're going to develop that property or whether you're just going to let it sit there and appreciate in value. Yes? Yes. Okay. So therefore, if we can buy an equal amount of property without using the $100,000, because we leverage our brain, isn't it also true then that $100,000 I've got invested in that property, I'm getting a 0 rate of return on because I can get that property without putting that $100,000 in? Catch up to me here. If I can buy $1 million worth of property without using my money and get the same rate of return on it as I can using my money, then I'm not getting a return on my money. Am I?
No.
Okay. You think that's not important to you? Let's just take $100,000. Just make this note. You take $100,000 and you invest it at 7% for 10 years, it turns into $172,000. Invested at 15% for 10 years, it turns into $444,000. Invested at 20% for 10 years, it turns into $725,000. You guys can invest money at 20% interest in a coma. 20%, for what you know, is a very low rate of return on your money. In fact, the thing I'm going to show some of you tomorrow is going to get you a minimum of 20% return on it, and you do nothing. Think of what kind of return you can do if you do something. Can all of you in the room make private loans to the people where you live, for example? Okay, you charge a few points getting in or getting out, and you charge a 12, 14, 15% interest rate, you got way over 20% return. Can all of you buy defaulted mortgages? Yes. Yeah, tons of things you guys can do. Can all of you pay cash for a house, sell a house, and get, 100% return on your money? 100% return in 2 months, much less in a year. And when I say 20% return, you understand I'm talking about an annual rate of return. If I make 10% on my money in 6 months, but I do it twice a year, is that a 20% rate of return? Yes. Okay, but here's the point. If I take that $100,000 and I leave it buried in that real estate, and I'm not getting any rate of return over there, do you understand that $725,000 that I don't get 10 years from now because I didn't know not to leave my money buried in the real estate? Hello? You have to be very careful where you park your money. Your entire business philosophy is to take cash and turn it into assets that turn back into cash. That turn back into assets that turn back into cash. That turn into assets that turn into cash. Then you die.
And you give it all to charity.
Correct. What do you care? You're dead. Now, in fact, Dale West is coming tonight. Oh, got to listen to Dale West. Because he's probably going to talk a little bit about CRTs and talk about how to set up your own foundations and control your own charity so you can stick money in them while you're alive and have it pass on to your heirs while you're dead without taking money away from your heirs. Take care of your heirs and take care of your charities at the same time. All it takes is a couple simple techniques to do that. And I'm sure that doesn't mean anything to many of you before you get here, but let me tell you, if you use this stuff that we're learning here, pretty soon, you're going to be thinking about what you should be doing with charities. Anyway, the example that I just used, remember, is only on $100,000 invested over a 10-year period, class. Cost you $750,000 if you let that money get buried and you don't keep it out at a passive rate of return. Now think of what's going to happen when you add to that principal over this same 10-year period. You're going to have so much money in that account that you can't count it. You're going to have to weigh it. Now think of what it's like if you use your Roth IRA to do that with, and it's tax-free for life. And just for the record, I'll give you a couple numbers. You take $100,000 and you invest it at 15% for 10 years outside of your Roth IRA. In other words, you put $100,000 a year in for 10 years and you keep it out at 15%. Everybody follow that? Yep. At the end of 10 years, it's worth, I think, $2.4 million outside your Roth IRA because you're getting taxed on the gain and you only get to reinvest the untaxed part. Everybody got it? You do the same thing inside your IRA and not pay taxes on it, at the end of 10 years it's worth $10.9 million. Which one's better? Well, anyway, let's get on to seller financing. There is no better financing on the planet than getting the owner of the property to take back a mortgage or trust deed on the property. There is so much flexibility there. It is the cheapest money there is. Just think. You didn't have to apply for it. You didn't have to get approved. There's no credit report most of the time. There's no points. There's no prepayment penalty. There's no personal liability if you do it correctly. And now when you get good at it, there's no payments and there's no interest. I don't think Brandon's got a single lender that'll loan us money with no payments and no interest. And if you do, I want all they got.
Haven't found that person yet.
You always want to go for as much seller financing as you can get with as little cash as you have to give up to satisfy their needs. Don't ever forget that. It's a very simple rule. No matter how you structure this thing, the less cash you have to give them, the better the deal. The more owner financing, the better the deal. Now, we don't need long-term owner financing because we don't intend to be in this thing long-term before we either refinance it or sell it. We simply need to buy enough time to where we reasonably think we can get the job done times 2. However long you think it's going to take, double it. Man plans, God laughs. Double it. It always costs twice as much and takes twice as long as you plan for it to do. And here's another beautiful thing about seller financing. Whatever I agreed upon today and put in writing at closing, we can change tomorrow. Because it's two people talking to each other. Much harder to do with banks. Why do I not have personal liability on these loans? I'm buying them in an entity. The entity is signing on the note. The officer of the entity. There's no personal liability. And it's rare when a seller asks for a personal liability on a note. And it's even rarer when I agree. So you got no personal liability. You got non-recourse debt without ever mentioning the word non-recourse. You don't even need to put it in your contract that this is non-recourse. Because if the entity's buying the property, everybody expects the entity to sign on the note. It's the easiest money to get there is. Now, the way you got to structure the deal is by lowering the amount of cash you give to the seller, you lower the amount you got to borrow from a hard money lender. You always want to get that number down as low as you can get it because they're expensive. But more importantly, the lower the loan-to-value ratio, the more easy it is for the lender to make the decision to move forward, and they might even allow you to overcome some obstacles like you're not the strongest borrower in the world or they're not exactly thrilled about this property by lowering that loan-to-value ratio. And the way you can do that is get the seller to raise the amount they'll take back. Now, when you're buying properties, we discussed yesterday about splitting properties, this is where you're going to have to get a little bit creative. And we're going to be talking about deals throughout the afternoon and throughout, intermixed in with this event, we're going to be discussing your projects. And maybe that's going to bring it home on the art of structuring. By the way, did anybody expect to be an expert when you get out of here? Good. Because you won't be.
Well, and obviously this is the king of negotiating, but one tactic that I've seen used effectively with sellers is, especially since you guys are going to be going after problem properties, it's an easy way to negotiate to say, listen, the condition of your property right now is going to be very tough to finance through my bank. So what I'd like to do is see if you'd be willing to carry the note long enough for me to either improve the property or fix it up or fix the problem. Because now you're telling them it's your fault. I can't get a bank loan.
Your property will not support the loan.
And nobody is going to buy it until it does. Let me help you fix your problem.
Very good. Is that how you got these Chinese deals negotiated?
That's how I got the Venezuelan deal negotiated.
Okay. And this is also why it's very easy to get one of two things. The seller to give you part of their property when you buy, so you can put the hard money loan on it, and they can take back a mortgage on the balance. Or the seller to subordinate to your hard money loan. They can take a second behind your new first. See, your justification is, I'm going to borrow the money to pay you and fix the problem, and then I'm going to refinance it and take you out. And frankly, if you can't wait on me to get that done, I can't buy your property.
And neither can anybody else until the problem's fixed.
Yeah. And frankly, if you want me to pay you all cash now, I'll be happy to, but you're probably not going to like the number. In fact, I feel like I'd be insulting you. Now, what you really want them to say is, please insult me. And of course, then you're going to go right in for a low all-cash offer that does just exactly that, insults them. And then you're going to be shocked when sometimes they'd rather have the low cash now than wait on the money later. Either way, do you win? We call that multiple offer strategies, don't we? Okay. I go in there, I want them to take a second, I want them to allow me to borrow plenty of money. And again, listen, I'm not keeping secrets from them. I'm not going to play the game where I got to go in and try to hide stuff from them. If they ask me a question, I'm going to tell them the point blank truth. If they ask me, how much are you going to borrow? I'm going to say, at least enough to get you paid and get the job done and then some. Well, how much is that? Well, I don't know yet till I get my numbers in, but it'll be enough to get the job done. Well, how much money are you putting in it? None. None. If I have to put money in it, I don't want the deal. That's how we operate. Well, if that bothers them, then I'm not the guy. I'm not the huckleberry. Now, the good news is, frankly, it's going to be rare when you're actually going to be talking to the seller face to face anyway. You guys don't even have to do the negotiating. You normally are just going to tell the commercial real estate broker, this is how I can buy it and this is why I want it this way. You don't even have to have your language down pat. And the next one is permanent financing. You see, you're not going to survive with this one either unless you sell everything you get your hands on. You're not going to survive without this one. So you need all three of these kinds of financing. All three of them. They're all an integral part of the process of not only creating cash, but creating wealth. And you see, your real wealth is going to come from the permanent financing. Some of your cash is going to come from the front end entry point with hard money, but most of your cash is going to come when you go refinance with permanent money. And incidentally, if the property adequately supports the permanent financing, and you won't get it if it doesn't, then now when you take that money out of there, you can call most of that money your money. Because it is permanent financing. Certainly you should leave some of it in the account to take care of problems, but now, that's your money. And guess what? It's tax-deferred money, too. You don't pay taxes on money you borrow in this country. Yet. At least not till the Democrats get back in office. Just kidding. I don't want to hear it. All right, I don't want to hear it. So you literally can go through your entire career buying properties, funding them with private money, refinancing them, hopefully with non-recourse debt, having properties that have a nice cash flow, taking out millions of dollars in cash, and never pay any taxes except on the profit that the property generates as an operating entity. And then Sunday we'll talk about what to do with them when you do want to move them out, 1031 exchanges, and how to do it in your Roth IRA as well. Okay? Now, I want Brandon to spend most of the time on this permanent financing stuff because there's so much to learn about that. Actually, there's not that much to learn. If you just learn the basics and get the basics of what can be financed and what can't be financed, it's really going to make it a lot easier for you to figure out what's going to happen on the back end so you can better structure the front end. Yes,
Yeah, is that the tax deferred money or is it tax free money?
it's tax deferred. If you sell the property, you're going to get whacked on taxes.
Okay. Now, when we refi, that would be the tax free money.
It's tax deferred.
Okay, so it's never tax
You
free.
free refi, you don't pay taxes until you sell the property.
Okay, thank you.
That would be tax deferred. Okay.
Quick hard money question.
Yes?
As we approach a lender, and let's say we don't have Ron with us or a family member or someone like that, it's customary for them to ask for financial statements or something?
Yes.
Absolutely.
In addition to the appraisal, obviously, but they're going
They're going to check your credit. They're going to look at you as an individual and see what your debt payment has been, your history. They're going to want to see how much financial depth you have, because if for some reason the property doesn't cover, they still want to be able to come after you, and they want to see that you've got some reserves, ideally. Now, they don't demand it. There are lenders that will do deals for people with damaged credit and with no cash, especially if the LTV is attractive enough. But they're going to want to look at it, no question.
okay. And if I have some contacts who are willing to give me a lot of money, do I get in any problems with licensing or anything as a mortgage? I mean, I'm a realtor, but
Are you borrowing the money? Or are you lending it out to others?
I would be borrowing. Well, let's see. Let's say both.
Then you need a license. If you're lending out money and you're getting paid to do so, you need a license. If you're borrowing the money, however, and then you're relending it as the lender, you can probably get by without a license. But if you do that as a business, you're going to need a license.
Okay, thanks.
Especially if you market the fact that you're going to lend that money.
Exactly.
Ron, I've been using that strategy you just mentioned for several years of buying, holding, refinancing, pulling the profit out. It's becoming increasingly difficult to get mortgages the more that we have. Have you found a way around that?
Yeah. Quit guaranteeing notes, dummy.
Well, okay. Good point.
Like you didn't know this.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Okay. Well, the good news is when you get into the big leagues, most of the loans that you're going to be getting on these larger properties are not going to require your personal guarantee because it's irrelevant anyway. I mean, when you got here borrowing $10, $15, $20 million, who cares about your personal guarantee? I mean, what good is it? Yeah. What when you go down, you're just going to go down a little slower because you're personally guaranteed the debt. In fact, I'm going to work real hard to make sure that these loans on the bigger properties are non-recourse. Okay. Credit lines, you're absolutely going to guarantee them. Smaller properties, you're going to guarantee them. In fact, there's a sheet in here on your HUD 221D loan right here on the next page. That's non-recourse money. That's non-recourse. That's one of my favorite things about it. So we're going to get into that right now because there's non-recourse, and non-recourse means no personally guaranteed debt. That's all it means. It means the lender is looking at the property to support the debt, which they won't make the loan if it doesn't anyway. When you're getting permanent financing, that property better support that debt or you ain't getting the permanent financing. You're just a bonus if they get you on there as a personal guarantee.